Right, this is going to be another episode of the best damn league show period. And we're going to have a guest again for this one. We're going to bring in Nelson here, who is obviously an assistant coach at Excel, no longer in the playoffs, but we're a playoff team. And we're going to do, basically, I'll set it up again like I did on the last one. Remember, this isn't fucking Summon Insight, and it certainly isn't the Crackdown. So the whole episode won't be about Nelson/Excel. In fact, I actually think of all the guests we have, this will probably be the one where we talk not at all about his team. Maybe if it relates to something about the other squads. My plan is just bring Nelson on as if when he used to not be here working for a team, and you just bring him in to talk about all the teams in the playoffs, the matchups, and sort of what's going on in the scene. So here's where I want to start off, though, which is I want to start off here. Right, Dom, I actually want to start with you, which was you were obviously someone who had Fnatic taking the series against Rogue, right? That was your prediction, yes? What did just give me your initial thoughts of what, like for example, what was different about Rogue that maybe you didn't anticipate, or was Fnatic worse than you thought? Which side do you go down on that one?
I definitely think both to some extent. For me, I think Fnatic, their adaptations throughout the series were super poor. I mean, they essentially lost the same game 3 times in a row because they just couldn't believe that Larssen would actually play Sylas. They're like,
Yes.
no. The first 2 games where he went like 10-0,
Yeah.
those were some bullshit. The next game is where we see the real Larssen, and then Larssen just kept on performing. So it felt like they just like couldn't believe that them playing TF and having Larssen counterpick with Sylas was actually a losable game for them, even though they just lost 2 of them. And then also, I think that Rogue obviously mentally were way more resilient than anything I've ever seen before. I mean, as soon as it was 2-0, I was expecting a 3-0, especially with how the games looked. I mean, there was like some like bright moments, like the fact that Rogue was actually still able to win some fights in the first game that I think was completely over once the Jace Corki comp actually had Infernal Soul. That poke advantage is just way too much for their comp to overcome. The fact they stayed in that game was nice, but after the second game, I was pretty sure that it was just going to be a 3-0 for Fnatic. So I think the weirdest part for me was definitely the adaptation from Fnatic overall, though. Like them not selecting Red Side ever. Like Red Side won every single game this entire series, right? So when Red Side was 4-0, I'm like, you know what? Your Red Side draft looked pretty good in game 1. Why not just take Red Side again? Especially with how the series was shaping up. The Rakan 5th pick priority became like the support counter pick priority became super high in the series, where both teams were valuing 5th pick support. In game 1, it was the Pyke from Hillsong, and then it became Rakan from Trimby for the other games. But I just felt like, you know what, like whatever you're doing is not working out here. Why lose the same way 3 times when you have the opportunity to actually go Red Side, potentially get the Rakan for Hilly or something, which is one of his core picks, and have a chance to win the series, or at least lose a different game than the first 2 you just lost.
What we'll do, Nelson, if at any point while we're having a discussion, there's an interesting detail, jump in whenever you want. We won't just do it like directed constantly. We'll talk through all these games, because I wanted to get your thoughts in that sense. Like coming into this matchup, Rogue against Fnatic, right? We've heard all these stories from people in the teams, especially the teams scrimming, that they all favoured like Fnatic to be better. I noticed there was like the one person was, I think Flackhead from G2 actually was the only one who was sort of bigging up Rogue. And most people said even though from scrims supposedly Fnatic was bad, but people thought they should be the ones that won. Were you surprised that Rogue were the winners of this series, Nelson?
I think like the main thing about scrims is not about Fnatic being bad. It's just how the amount of time they take during scrims and what happens after.
Like they speedrun them all, right?
No, not as in, yeah, you can say that, but I think I think the scrims do matter, because nearer to the playoffs, I think Fnatic was also pretty good in scrims.
Right.
But so Rogue. And Rogue has been like the most consistent team throughout the split.
Everyone always tells me they're the best team to practice against.
Yes, for sure. But just judging off practice, so if there's nothing, like there are no stage nerfs involved, I think Rogue just have the best bot lane, because they have a support which is willing and can play every champion or every support champion. But if you look at Fnatic, Hylissang is fixed on a couple of champions which he wants to play. And if Trimby picks something like, Karma, then what are you going to play to win the lane?
Yeah, fair enough.
Hillsong, you're going to play Pyke. You're just going to play Pyke and somehow kill them at level 1, because somehow every single range support matchup, Hilly can just win at level 1 with Pyke. It makes no sense.
I mean, the reason why, who was it? Trimby picked Lulu the first game, I think. A few teams we tried it out in scrims, and Lulu can beat Pyke, but I think he didn't play that matchup well, especially in the first few waves.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
and I know that, I mean, the Fnatic bot lane for sure they're very good, right? But I think half of the games or half of the lanes which they play during the LEC, I think they win because the enemy team just didn't turn the nameplates off.
Let me ask you a question on those lines, though, because I was talking to someone on another show. I won't reveal because I don't know which order comes out, etc. And they basically said that one of the reasons in scrims they actually thought Fnatic, if anything, maybe is an overrated team, is they said essentially in scrims they just play totally for bot all the time. Like they just have the most abusive fucking 2v2 matchup. They just jungle a gank constantly. Like it makes it sound like if I set it up like that, the difference is Rogue play to their bot lane when it makes sense, but actually they seem like a pretty even distribution team. Whereas Fnatic does seem like they hard sort of play through that lane.
I mean, I don't think that's the case, right? Because even in scrims, they do play to top side.
Fair enough.
They do play to top side a few times. Sometimes bot. It's not always like perma coming bot lane. And I think that's like one of the playstyles they're trying to branch into to prepare themselves, for international events, I suppose. But I think
the
Rogue
G2 strategy from last year, I like that.
G2 strategy was different, but I can't talk about it.
Okay, all right.
By the
But
way, even on that note, though, like I actually thought one thing I found very interesting, I want to get your thoughts on, is all the people I was watching on the live views, like fucking Dom, LS, they were all malding on these first 2 game drafts for Rogue.
Yeah.
But like it
I
seems
was gonna
like
bring this up.
Rogue themselves in all the interviews keep saying they think those drafts were good or they were fine or whatever. So can you guys kind of theory craft it? What were they thinking was good? Do you think?
I think the game 1 draft, like with the Lulu, makes no sense when you're playing into Jace Corki. I just feel like this is one of the problems that Rogue always has, where they like prep their drafts really hard beforehand, and when things are shown to them that are not standard, like I'm assuming they weren't expecting Fnatic to pick Corki because Humanoid has been playing pretty much no Corki in the recent weeks.
Yes.
So their mentality was, oh, like we're probably just going to like look for like a Lulu blind here, like a Lulu Jinx lane, regardless, and not taking into account the fact that the enemy team has drafted double poke in solo lanes, so they need engage or they can't play the fucking game. So yeah, the game 1 draft I was molding over, and I'm not sure who you talked to from Rogue, but I had Odo on my live view on my co-stream for LCS for the playoffs, and he thought that the draft was bad too. He thought that like they had no business even playing this game out. So yeah, Nelson, what was your take on the Lulu 5th pick into Jace Corki?
No, I think they lost the game in the first 3 picks because yes they picked supposedly the best AD carry in Jinx, and Jace against Jinx, I think it's okay. If both champions are equally fed, I think you can handle a Jace. But I think the moment they pick Victor, they open themselves up into like too many mid lane picks which Fnatic can play, and they just picked Corki. Like Corki alone can just 1v5 this game, regardless of what Rogue picked on 3, 4, or 5.
Even though I'm actually with Dom, like when you go down 0-2, this is the problem with actually how competition works is it's never the same for every type of player. Like I'll give you an example. There are some players, this happens in my native CSGO all the time. There's some players where if they lose a game, but they were like right in the game and they almost won it, some of them actually take confidence from that. Like, oh, fuck it. Yeah, we can beat him next time. Run it back. Play it again. But some people actually, that is what will crush their confidence. They're like, oh, I was so close. Fuck, and I didn't do it. Like, oh, it makes you feel like you exerted all that energy, all that effort for nothing. That's where I did want to see how Game 3 played out to know in this sense. But when you look back now, having seen the series, now it just makes Rogue look really good, mate. Because I actually think, for real, the first 2 games, draft disadvantage, they definitely didn't expect the fix from Fnatic. They looked like Rogue were way more conservative. They somehow stay in both games way longer than they had any business being. Like that fucking moment when Humanoid escaped on like 1 HP on fucking Corki because bloody Malrang's playing like fucking first strike Lee Sin, just refusing to actually play like real fucking Lee Sin setups. Like the stupid thing is there was all these moments in the game where they were like coming this close to almost getting the fight they want, almost getting the catch they need. So for me, like they almost essentially won the 2 games Fnatic was the best in, and then the other 3 they fucking stomped them. They actually for real just shit stomped Fnatic, the team that's supposed to be the best in Europe. So I know obviously I know now who wins the series, but I actually think if you look back now, we'll see. But a lot of that whole like Rogue's mental resilience is gone. Like that seems like that isn't the case for this team.
I mean, I think especially the first game, I think it was almost impossible for them to win. They would need to be like 9k up, like 1 item up on their AD mid and top lane to have a chance of winning this game. So even when Malrang did some like miracle engages, miracle flanks, like that was the only way they can win, but they need to win like 3 or 4 such fights in a row, which I think is too much to ask.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it was also really weird how Fnatic felt pressured to like engage. Like Fnatic would just opt into, they would mind game themselves with the package, I'm pretty sure, where they would take the package and they're like, oh shit, like we've got package right now. We should like start Baron so that we can bait them into a fight with the package, where like in reality, their team comp can just sit there and poke forever. And it's all on the enemy team to like have to start an objective, or, you know, like in neutral standoffs, Fnatic has a massive advantage in that game. So I feel like that just kind of showed, little discipline, like how undisciplined Fnatic is, that they were not willing to just sit on their fucking win con, which is poke, and just force the enemy team to suicide engage. Because what happens is you hit one shock blast, one big one,
could say,
and the whole fight just opens up, and then the enemy team just feels pressured. It's like, okay, when they have mega, like Odo's just gonna have to like flash engage and hope that you fuck up. You flash and engage, you just kite it out, and you win the fight. So it felt really weird that Fnatic kept on fighting like they were playing with equal amounts of poke on both sides, and with like the package as like the win condition of a fight, when the package should have been kind of irrelevant in that game. Like the package wasn't needed at all. So it felt like Fnatic just was killing themselves a lot of times in these situations.
I mean, I don't remember the exact scenarios, but I think if the enemy, like for example, if they didn't spot Malrang on the map, I can understand why they would want to engage, because they just want to get a fight started before Malrang gets into position to win the fight for a rogue.
What are your thoughts, by the way, Nelson, on actual Malrang the player? Because I have a problem with him, right? Which is I actually think he seems really good specifically for Rogue. Like he seems like he covers a lot of their weaknesses and forces them to play in a way that they weren't before. But I actually low-key don't think as like an actual, in isolation, I don't think as a jungler he's actually that good, mate. What are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I think he reminds me of Peanut in 2020 when, is it 2020? Yeah. He reminds me of, he reminds me of Peanut in 2020, where he's just very smart. He knows how to react in terms of, like, if the enemy makes an aggressive play on top side, he will also make an aggressive play, but he will do like a lane gank, you know, so that he's always closer to the enemy top laner compared to their own jungler, and stuff like that. He's just preying on like the mentality of players, where when your jungler is in the top side invading the top side jungle, you have this sense of security where, you know, there's no way enemy jungler can be here, and then that's where you get punished. And I think Malrang does very well in these scenarios, which a lot of EU junglers don't actually think about.
Even though I didn't actually get to see what your take was, I saw that for this series they voted Malrang the MVP of the series, right?
Yeah, I lost my mind.
You must have been malding about that, because here's the thing, Dom. I get both sides. I get why to a pleb they're like, oh, but he's in a bush. This is so tense. Oh my god, he got an engage. That seems like wow, incredible. But like everything else he was doing, he was fucking up half these games as well, right? And his builds and picks were some fucking weird shit.
If I was to give MVP, I would give it to Larssen, like easily. Because for me, I mean, Larssen is the one who is having to like do the difficult thing. When Rogue is playing these drafts out, game 4, Fnatic's draft strategy is to give Malrang Hecarim, the best jungler on the patch, Malrang's best champion. They're giving it over to Malrang because they want the TF that badly, and they're going to like put the pressure on Larssen to have to counterpick with something that Larssen is like not normally good at.
He's only played it 3 times ever, if people don't know. He's not a Silas player.
Yeah, 1 and 2, and he was like 1 and 2 beforehand. And I mean, if you just think about how Larssen's always been as a player, like he's never looked as good on champions like Akali, Aurelia, Silas as he has on all of the like mages. So you wouldn't expect that. And then also like, I mean, Malrang is getting dream starts in a lot of these games. Like one of the games that his top laner like sacrifices top wave and TP to come to this level 1 invade, and Malrang just starts like with first blood and the enemy junglers behind on Hecarim, where it's like, sure, I mean, he popped off of that game, but Larssen is having is having way more pressure put on him in the games, and he's performing still. Like
he's playing really against Humanoid's TF, for fuck's sake, like one of the most signature picks in the whole region. I think people, this is where, by the way, Dom, I'm not going to make it a segment on every week, so I'll probably do a whole video separately, but I'll just say it briefly. When is Larssen ever going to get his fucking flowers, mate? Like, you can't tell me Humanoid is the best player in the West and the most clutch and the greatest player and the only one that can go against Koreans. And it's like, right, let's give him his pick then 3 games in a row and have Larssen pick a champion he doesn't pick. And Larssen then smurfs on him, and at the end, people are just like, I guess Humanoid had a bad game. It's like, look, cocksucker, you're supposed to turn around and give credit to the guy who just beat him. What the fuck? Like, by that logic, when does he ever get his credit? He didn't even play like bloody Larssen normally does. He still can't get credit. Like, fucking hell. What do you think on this topic? Come on.
I think the MVP is just Hecarim, right? So if you're any jungler not named Selfmade, you're gonna
whoever piloted Hecarim is the MVP. There you go, Nelson. I like that.
as long as you're not named Selfmade, you're gonna 1v9 on this champion, and I think
okay. Flaming
game three-
self-made?
Yes, nice.
Game 3, Game 4, I think it was just the Hecarim show. But for sure, like who was it? Larssen played well in the last game.
I mean,
because I think like when you have Hecarim on your team, the enemy can't really pick a mage mid lane. So, and I
it's the easiest Hecarim game of all time. It is like literally the easiest Hecarim game you will ever play in your life, where you start with first blood, the enemy jungler is like behind, and then like people don't have flashes and shit. Like what?
Like for sure, Fnatic, they have it in mind that enemy is gonna pick Hecarim, but they first pick TF, which doesn't really care about Hecarim because it's not as impactful if you die. But I guess he died too many times.
Yeah, but I mean that's also like it was like Humanoid was really disrespectful. Like his flashes were bad. It's like it's very easy to flash a Hecarim gank. As soon as Hecarim E is about to hit you, you flash, and it will push you to safety. It will push you in the wrong direction if you flash at the correct time. So, I mean, to me, I just feel like Larssen showed so much in this series. Not only the like mental fortitude to pick. To not fall back to like being like, oh no, you know what? I'm not comfortable on Silas here. I'm just gonna play Orianna.
Yeah.
To overcome that, and then to also like win the fucking series and be good in those games when the whole narrative around him is like choking. When people talk about Rogue choking, he's the one that they're mainly talking about. Like Larssen is the person that is known to fucking choke. And he overcame like his fucking demons. Like Humanoid is the fucking counter to Larssen. He's always been like better than Larssen in all the key moments. So I don't know. To me, I just feel like Larssen is the one that really defined this series. I felt like mid lane defined the series.
Nelson, do you think that was this like concerning for you for Humanoid? Because like Dom said about the Larssen story, Humanoid is supposed to be the opposite. He's supposed to be the guy where I joke, it's like, he comes on a fucking motorbike last minute to the stadium with a leather jacket and a fucking girl and goes like, all right, love, just got to play a series. Then he goes in and then the joke is like, that's when he's supposed to smurf and come back and be clutch. And like, essentially he looked like the opposite of himself in this series. What do you think of that angle?
I mean, if I was like in Fnatic, I would have done the same because I'm pretty sure they're like almost unbeaten in practice with Twisted Fate. So why wouldn't you go with like your most practiced pick? But I think it was
because you just lost 2 games on it.
Yeah,
that's what I would say. Like,
but
because you just lost 2 fucking stage games and they weren't even close. You're getting fucking obliterated with it. So why not just go to like a different strategy? Why lose the same game 3 times? Why never go red side? Either game 4 or game 5.
As in, I mean, for sure, for game 3 and 4, I just think they just needed to ban Hecarim because there's a champion which can beat any comp. At least, in every scrim against every team, like Hecarim is just the highest prio.
Okay.
And almost never loses. And I'm not sure why.
Why not just draft the Hecarim? Why not just first pick Hecarim when you have blue side here? You could first pick Hecarim, give them TF, and then Humanoid can play the Silas into TF if you think that that's like, the counter. I don't know. I feel like there's so many other options besides for playing the literal same. And if the enemy team still wants to give you TF, perfect. Then you get TF Hecarim. Like
yes, exactly. But I think they're also afraid of Larssen playing TF, so they wouldn't. And it's actually not a good matchup. But if you have Hecarim, it doesn't matter at all because the TF cannot pressure you, and he has to be careful of pushing on his lanes because he'll just get ganked by Hecarim.
What about this then? There's also the other side of the jungle matchup, which is, tell you what, as soon as Razork came off Volibear, there's a reason why I keep pointing out, like, I think this player is mega overrated in this lineup. Like, I'll give you the best way I can describe it like this. If I had to put both players, Razork and Malrang, onto the worst teams in the LEC, I think Razork would do way better. I think Malrang would actually int. Razork on Fnatic, though, I just don't think he fits the team, mate. Like, he was all right in the Volibear games. Aside from that, like, he just disappears off the map sometimes. He's fucking doing nothing.
I mean, I feel like there's not much you can do in these games, though. Like, they literally just, like, so for example, game 4, the whole strategy was level 1. Their whole strategy, like, the only reason they drafted Braum is because they want to do this level 1 on Hecarim, because Hecarim has a really weak level 1, and that is how you fuck over this champion. You invade him. If you, like, kill him or you force him to, like, vertical jungle or something like that, the champion is fucking worthless. And the problem that I have with this strategy in this game is that you've seen Rogue respond to these same invades in previous games. So if you remember in week 8, there was a game where they played against G2, Rogue played against G2, and it was on the other side of the map where Trimby was just sitting top lane at like 140. Then Vade comes in from the Xin Zhao, and I think it was an Akshan that game from G2. They're just waiting for him. They kill the Xin, they defend the Hecarim, and then Hecarim just completely takes over the game. Like, Rogue understands that literally Hecarim is so fucking OP if you get him a good start, that sacrificing a lane, sacrificing a teleport, whatever, like being late, all that stuff is worth it just because Hecarim will be enabled to be that strong of a pick. So I don't like Fnatic all-inning and then acting like they weren't expected. They're like, what the fuck? The Orin is here. It's like, you've seen this team do this before. This was like scoutable. You know that this team understands how valuable Hecarim level 1 is and they're ready to prepare it. And the Braum pick, blind, I mean, you're just giving them the most free fucking Rakan game of all time as well. So I had a problem with that. And then I feel like, because like after that happens, Razork doesn't get to play the game. Like Viego versus Hecarim, that game is fucking over. Like Hecarim is just going to run over the entire game. So to me, I'm not as critical of Razork because I feel like the team strategy is, I mean, once it fails, like he's going to look the worst.
What about game 5 though? Because in game 5 he has his Viego, which has been playing all split, and he's playing against fucking Trundle. That's not even like a Malrang champion, mate. That's the game where I expect something to happen. Come on. You're picking your best champion in theory, it's game 5.
Yeah.
I think game 5, the main issue was, I mean, the issue
Humanoid
was also draft, where if you see how the best teams they draft with Viego is they have a hard engage in on support, because you play around with jungle support and usually it's like Nautilus or Leona, and Viego with Thresh is a champion which doesn't do anything well. He does everything like on an average level, and he isn't really like a hard engage compared to like Nautilus or Leona. And Viego needs someone to start the fight so that he can get a reset. And with how teams draft nowadays in professional league, where both sides have engaged supports, as if you manage to kill the enemy support, the Viego will pick him up and 1v5 the fight. But if you can't do it, then Viego is useless.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, I just think in this game, like Humanoid's so disrespectful towards Malrang's ganks. Like when Malrang's playing Trundle, this champion is not going to be farming Wraiths and Golems. Like this champion is going to do 3 or 4 camps and then show up in a lane and try to blow a flash, try to kill somebody. And just like with the way Humanoid's playing, like he could just ward on an earlier wave. He can make sure that he's at least tracking the Trundle and allow his Viego to use the advantage Viego has, which is that Viego can obviously clear better than Trundle. And if nothing happens in the game, Viego will be like more useful later on. So to me, this game, like I just feel like, I feel like Humanoid is just kind of sprinting it like on the TF. As soon as he dies, like the first 2 times, just feels like the whole game is over, to be honest.
I mean, it's just how they practice, right? Because if you practice seriously, you will know that like there are some junglers which can only gank, and you have to ward, level 1, or you need to ward after first wave, after the second wave, and stuff like this is not seen very commonly in EU at least, because like for sure in these types of ganks, which Malrang did in the last game, it happened like a million times, in LPL scrims, because it always happens where junglers would just instantly flip the gank.
What else is Trundle gonna do? Yeah,
exactly, and you're prepared. And because of you experience it so many times in practice that you're prepared to not get killed on the official game.
And also, I did tell people, as much as I agree, Hylissang should be an MVP candidate, the one player who can fucking handle Hylissang is Trimby. If you're gonna have to pick someone else, he's the other support that is the clear like elite tier support in the league. Like I think he and the rest of the games once he got off Lulu, he looked great to me, Nelson.
I mean, I think this series, I think Rogue was very smart to pick red side, or I mean, Fnatic was not smart to pick red when they lost.
To not pick red, true.
Yeah, because I think if you have a team which can match up with Fnatic in lane, which I don't think it's so. Basically, you just need to have a very good like AD carry support, and you give last pick to your support. I think it's always a win, as long as your other lanes don't get stumped, which
I mean,
it's not the hardest. I mean, for sure, mid for some matchups, for sure it's hard. But I think top lane, Wonder is not as good as not as good at like extending his leads or making his lead like big enough so that he can 1v9 the game. At least compared to like Broken Blade.
I mean, when I'm watching this game 5, like Razork is getting griefed by his laners so incredibly hard. Like I don't know how he's not typing to them in the middle of the game, like flaming them for what's going on. So you see the Trundle gank mid, which is like what else is the fucking Trundle gonna do? The Trundle has like no angles in the early game. Like, you just know when he's going. It's super predictable what the Trundle's gonna do. So Humanoid dies. Even if you say like, okay, yes, you should never die to the mid gank with Trundle as TF level 3. But let's say something happened where they just like had completely wrong information. They didn't know where Trundle started, and they expected him to be on the other side, because the only reason this gank works is because Humanoid face checks the bush in melee range of Malrang, and then Malrang kills him, right? Then you see him exit topside, going for top crab. You see Malrang exit topside, going for top crab. And at the same time, Razork is diving bot. Razork makes a good response play. They dive the bot, they get a kill. And then Malrang just kills top as well. It's like you literally just saw him kill mid, and now he just killed top. How the fuck is that possible? Like, the more I watch this, the more I'm like, yeah, I don't think what Razork's doing is a problem at all. I feel like his laners are playing like Malrang is just like, I don't know why they're disrespecting him so hard, because this is what Malrang does. Malrang is the guy who loves to gank, and they're just giving him the free opportunities. Like, if you look at the play, you look at the way that Wonder is trading, he's like under turret hitting IWillDominate when he knows the Trundle is topside. And then on top of that, he fucks up his E, and yeah, he gets like pillared out of his E, and then it's just doomed. So I don't know.
I think the most egregious one is the one at mid lane, because so right now, like mid lanes, I think most mid laners, if you are playing the TF against Sylas, you want to crash either on second wave or third wave. And the reason why you should crash on second wave is you crash on second wave if the enemy jungler can solo kill you. You want to crash on second wave so that you can ward. But if the enemy jungler is like, I don't know, Zek, or maybe like Skarner, then you can crash on third wave and then you ward, or even base. And it's mainly to prevent like the tree cam into gank, or getting like ganked when you're in the river placing wards. And this is where he made a mistake.
I mean,
go on. Yeah, go on.
This is just so egregious, though. When you look at what actually happens in this gank, like, so Humanoid isn't even crashing the wave. He's just like AFK pushing, and then it's 255, and he just walks with no vision at all. He just walks straight into the side lane bush, and Trundle is just there and just starts auto attacking him. Like, how do you fuck up so bad in a gank situation where Trundle literally, the melee jungler, just walks up and just starts auto attacking you, just beating your ass with the club? It makes no sense. It's like, how did you end up here? Like, what the fuck is going on? Why are you just like face checking the Trundle? Like, because you would expect him at least to have like some information of where he started, like be hugging the other top side. Maybe they have to like double flash on him, and if they hit everything, it ends up being a wild kill. But this was like super fucking easy for the enemy team. This was crazy.
No, I mean, you just based on like theoretically, you just should crash on the second wave, and if he didn't, then he just didn't think about like how strong Trundle is at level 3.
Thing is, though, I want to ask this, especially as someone who scrimmed against Rogue, right? The vibe I'm getting from Malrang, because the story, by the way, for all the talk shows I've watched has been the same. It's like, right, yeah, he's winning all these games, especially when Rogue was undefeated, but, eventually people are going to figure out his gimmicky style and they're going to shut him down. But I can tell you, I'll give you a very quick analogy, right? In CSGO, a similar thing happened from what I think is happening with Malrang. So there's a player in CSGO who was a Russian player called Jim, who played for the team Virtus Pro, and he's actually the opposite type of player to Malrang. He's an incredibly conservative player, even though in CSGO he's actually the sniper, which is normally like, it's not the most aggressive role, but you normally have to take angles to take shots and stuff. What this guy does basically is he sort of plays like a beta. He just always is like behind the angle or like conservatively positioned. And you'd think, right, when he does this, because in theory it should be actually like a not a very efficient style in Counter-Strike, you'd think every team would just watch the games like an analyst and a neutral observer and just go, oh, this is easy, just do X, Y, and Z and you shut this guy down. But the premise I've noticed is it doesn't happen in official games. His style actually is way more effective than you would think it would be. And my theory goes like this. It's because unless you did have a game plan only for this one player, it won't work. Every other player at his position basically trains you to play wrong against this guy because he's so unorthodox. I get the same vibe about Malrang. Like, everyone thinks, when you watch it just as like a random watching the game, why aren't they shutting this down? Like, look, fucking just get him early on the hacker rim. Like, it feels like teams just can't do it, Nelson. Like, what is it about this guy's style? Like, something about the fucking gambles he takes. People can't predict it. They can't be ready for it somehow.
I think his style is it's good for Europe for sure. And I think at least from my experience, almost every jungler or most of the junglers in China, they have this style, or they can just turn it on if they need to. But I just think Europe doesn't have experience facing like this type of junglers because he tries to prey on the tendencies which most players will make. So he will appear at the most like unexpected places.
I feel
Because
like this series he just
everyone
played
is like
pretty
everyone is
standard
into
though.
like farming, no? Like everyone is into like efficiency, farming all my camps on spawn, but he's not. And then teams just suddenly they just don't know how to handle it, or they don't know how to ward against it.
He really is the anti-inspired. It's so wild, isn't it? It's so contrasted as a player.
But I think the good thing is also that he has good laners, so
Oh, of
it's
course.
a playstyle which is fine, you know.
Yes.
It's just
That's
that
why I said earlier, if he was on the worst team, I think he just didn't, dude.
I think he's just better at how to say it. Like, he's better at being Yankos, you know, compared to Yankos himself.
He's a better Yankos than Yankos.
Yep.
Okay, nice. I mean, when I was watching these games, I didn't feel like Malrang was doing like the ultimate like center plays that I saw earlier this
Oh,
season. It
sure.
felt like he was playing like relatively just like, I mean, he was just like playing like well around his timings
No,
and
he was playing Hecarim.
yeah, I mean, he was playing Hecarim, but even like the Trundle game, it's not like he's doing it. It's not like he's hitting like he's like skilling pillar and then level 2 ganking mid. It's like, what the fuck? This guy's a psychopath. What is he doing? It's like I feel like he played the games just well. He just played like just normal, standard, good jungling. Like if you're playing Trundle, these are the opportunities you're gonna take, and you know he got them all off. So I feel like the Hecarim games. I mean, yeah, it's just you're just playing Hecarim, just like Nelson says. Like Hecarim's just broken for a reason. Most people ban it. Yeah, most people ban it against him for a reason. So those games, I don't. And plus, also Hecarim is like not one of those champions where you can like Omega sin a lot of the times. Like a lot of times, the reason why Hecarim is so broken is that you can still gank and you clear so fast that you'll like always be in the places to be able to gank. So I felt like Malrang like maybe the first 2 games he was doing some of that. I think the Lee Sin game was probably the most like Malrang style game where he was just finding kills that other people wouldn't find, like the solo kill on the Pike in the enemy or
yeah.
in his
Yep.
own jungle. Like some of those plays where I was like, oh, that's like more Malrang. But they actually lost those games, and then when he just started playing like normal, they just won every game. So it's interesting.
Fair enough.
I mean, I'm not so sure because you know, I just think he's playing Hecarim. He's just playing the champion, or the champion is just playing him, so he won. But I think for sure, game 5, he's just punishing humanoids like bad early laning phase where he didn't control the minion wave properly and just gank on third wave. I think against every jungler in the world, you're gonna get ganked in that matchup if you didn't crash on 2 because it's so obvious.
Yeah. I mean, even if you don't get ganked, like you at least need to play it in a way where you're like making them work for the gank. You know, like you're hugging the right side, like, or you just like, even if you don't crash it, like you go and you like ward while you're laning because pretty much you have full agency in this matchup as TF. In the first like 3 levels. I mean, Silas is just not a champion early game. So yeah, I think that this was but this is kind of how Humanoid plays. This is like why I feel like Humanoid is generally so good in Europe is because he
No,
just plays like the jungler is always there.
yeah, but that is rubbish because even if the jungler is there, they're gonna win the 2v2. As in, the Trundle side will win the 2v2 as well. So
But he won't die. He won't die like this. Like I mean, he would have to. They would have to fuck it up pretty hard to die like this. I mean, for him to die, he had to not select a card, face check the guy, and he still almost lived. So it's like,
no. And what I meant, if he just stayed in lane and tried to push it out, there would still be a gank. And even if Razork is there, it's good for the Silas team, you know, because Silas just wants to get level, and Trundle, he also hopes that enemy jungler doesn't farm at all, and they can't win that 2v2. So it's just him playing bad. There's no mind game in that.
yeah, I don't think it's as much a mind game, but it's just like how like Humanoid will play, and normally like they'll end up being like some type of benefit from the enemy jungle wasting resources because a lot of times he's not dying like this over and over. Like he's just absorbed. Like maybe he'll lose a flash that he shouldn't lose, or he'll like have to give up a wave that he doesn't need to give up. Like there'll be some type of punish that will not be as severe as like, oh, we're just fucking dead and we lost our flash and now like the Silas is online. Like this seemed especially bad, and then it's also like a Silas that has a dark seal. So I felt like this was like an ultra punish, whereas like I mean Humanoid normally I feel like he lanes like the jungler is like the enemy jungler doesn't exist. Not so much about his jungle, but like the enemy jungler does not exist to Humanoid most of the time.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. 'Cause even last split he was the same.
What we'll do is we'll talk about the G2 series, then we'll project forwards to the other ones, which are obviously the fun ones to talk about. Right? I don't want to go super in depth So I would say maybe for the G2 Vitality series, we should probably focus on the Vitality side because that's the more interesting part, in my opinion, because we can talk about G2 against Misfits, can't we? Right, Dom, I think actually, when I think back now, I even went back and checked a bunch of people's opinions on all the shows. Even though loads of people did have the take we had, which is like Vitality maybe runs it all the way back and is playing in the match that's about to happen now against Fnatic. I actually noticed no one ever said Vitality is good, though. It was actually people sort of just assuming somehow these players get it together because they just got such a sick set of players on paper. And then it was mainly actually people just like not thinking much of the other teams. So even though certainly Vitality was absolute dog shit in this fucking series, like I actually get the feeling everyone kind of knows Vitality never really got it together in the first place, right? They never really were a good team ever.
Of course not. But I mean, the reason why I thought Vitality was going to win this series was because of just how the individual matchup works. And if you can expect like, so if you go through like the entire series, right, you have to think about like what all the predictions were. I don't think anyone saw like Alphari versus Broken Blade and was like, yeah, no, I expect Broken Blade to just completely hard shit on Alphari 1v1 in the lane. Like that is not normally like the reason why people thought the Vitality would have a chance in the series is because generally Vitality was better in like mid to late game situations. Their bot lane actually has potential to win. And the top lane, which is the biggest strength from G2, the top side of the map, will probably not be able to smash Alphari super hard in lane because that's how Alphari makes his money. So to me, I would say the series was like completely opposite of pretty much everything that you could predict going in.
And even the bot lane of Vitality played half decent, Dom. It was like an upside down series, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that it was just a super unexpected series. Like, when was the last time that Vitality threw a 5k gold lead at 14 minutes? Like, they never have a 5k gold lead at 14 minutes. Like, this might be the biggest throw. Like, just off the top of my head, this is probably the biggest advantage they've ever had in a game at 15 minutes that they've lost. Like, I think that this is probably their maybe even the only game that they've lost with like over like 2 or 3k gold lead at 14 minutes this entire split. So it was super fucking weird because Vitality was worse in the team fights, but then like even in game 1 they did get out drafted, but when you looked at how Lebrov was playing, like Lebrov was actually moving around the map with self-made. He was like top lane, like ganking. I was like, oh shit, they're doing like support and jungle stuff, which is what you would never expect from them. And then Alphari was randomly like getting super shit on in like game 2 with his Camille, which is something that you wouldn't expect. And then then you get into the team fights and G2's just making better decisions. So it was like complete opposite day all over the place. I mean, I don't think that any amount of analysis could prepare you for how this series went. Like, I don't think there's any logical way you could tell yourself that this is like what would occur within the series.
Well, Nelson, what went wrong for Vitality, mate?
I mean, I think they should have, just by looking at the gameplay, they should have won game 1 and 3 where they had leads which couldn't be thrown. It's just that during the mid game, they were just getting caught on side lanes or getting cheesed over and over again. I mean, I understand if you get ganked once, right? Maybe you need a reminder in game, but they got killed the same way 3-4 times and then they lost their lead from there. I think game 2, I think it's not possible to lose if you draft slightly differently, where you don't pick mid lane first, you just pick Camille first, and you let you let Perks pick something else, because I think Perks is probably like top 2 laning mid laner just for this split. And
better than people mentioned on other shows, I noticed. No one ever bloody mentions it. I thought he was pretty decent, yeah.
No, I just think he's one of the best laning mid laners. It's just that somehow in the middle of regular split, he decided to play like River in the River only. So, I mean, I guess it's a decision he chose to help his side lanes, but I think if he played for himself, it would be so much better, at least for himself and the team. But I think he just shouldn't pick Ahri and Hecarim together when there's Sylas open, because I think Ahri is not a champion which can pressure the enemy mid laner. It's more of a champion which he's more like a Renekton of the mid lane without the kill pressure, you know.
But even in that game, he was like he had a lot of like pressure. I mean, Caps was like out of the game completely. Caps was like 1-4 with like 120 CS at like 20 minutes. Like, he was not in that game. So it's really weird to see how the series played out, because normally you like the strength of Vitality is that when they get to like even situations mid to late game, they just make slightly better decisions than enemy teams. So I mean, it was just a really, really, really weird series, and I don't really know what to make of it. Like, maybe Vitality is not as good as we think, but I mean, at the same time, is it like I don't even think that I had like that high of an opinion of Vitality. It's just I thought that the way that the series would interact would be different. Like the advantages that I could see Vitality getting, I thought would just transition into wins. Like that. I mean, that was just my perspective.
I think G2 had a better chance of winning this best of 5 because of how the previous series went. So previous series was like G2 losing to Fnatic, and then because they lost for sure, they have to change something up. But Vitality beat us, which beat XL, and it's easier for G2 to scout exactly what Vitality is doing. And if you do watch the games, when Selfmade is on like farming junglers or junglers which clear very fast, you can easily track him because he's on his cramp on the spawn. You know, like when Gromp is up in 5 seconds, you know he's there 100%. He's not doing anything else. And I think G2 just had very good prep because they banned the Olaf, they banned the Olaf
It's the only one
Volibear.
he's guaranteed to carry on. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's the only champ which can clear fast and also gank. I mean, other than Hecarim as well. And they just banned the 2 junglers out. And I guess the game which they opened Hecarim, they were trying to gamble, but I guess it ended up that
anyway.
Selfmade couldn't play Hecarim.
Then you think this is a pretty bad series from him, Dom?
From Selfmade?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if this is worse than how he played before. Like I think he played better than expected because of the Olaf pick versus XL, but I don't know. I mean, I just felt like it was like a team thing. I mean, I think the only player that I would look at and I would be like, oh, they played below expectations would be Alfari. I think that Alfari like individually was not playing well, but when I look at like the games overall, it felt like they were just lost as a team. Like, I mean, you have a 5K, 5.3K gold lead at 14 minutes. How are we losing this game, guys? Like, it's really impossible to lose this game. Especially
hey, look, mate, as much as you were bigging up Labrov in game 1, this motherfucker can't press R on fucking one of the most OP champions in the game right now. What's going on? We're supposed to, Dom, have better players than them, and we can't fucking use the buyback function. What's the point of this pick then? What's the point of it? That's to make us win.
I think he was just like mentally out of the games,
I know.
If you look at game 3 at the final fight at the Nexus, like Perks had 17 seconds left on his death timer,
and he just runs in.
Yeah, he just runs it, and I think Vitality would have won the fight there because it's 5v4 when Perks is up, or you can take a 4v4 when the death timer is a lot shorter.
Yes.
Because Rivera would never join the fight, and I don't think a pro player should ever throw a game like that. But he just did it, because he felt.
I mean, he also threw the fight before that where like Perks is on the inhib and like Vitality's actually in a good situation there because the enemy team like can't really bear in. They have to walk the long way, and for some reason, like Labrov feels like he needs to like stall them to like get the inhib, and he walks into the whole enemy team and dies. It's like, bro, what is going on? Like literally, what is going on in these situations? Because I mean, you're not even giving your team a chance to fight. Like. Even like, sure, they threw the gold lead from being like 5K up to even, but they still could have won the game. It's not like the game was completely over. And then they lost the game. It's like one of those solo queue games that you lose without ever fighting, where it's like people are so tilted, they're just running in one by one, and you just don't get a 5v5 until the game is over. Like that's how it looked, which is so like, it's so weird to me. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Also, like that game, like their decision making, like the overall decision making was really fucking weird. The overchase bot when Soul was spawning, what the fuck was that? Like, they won the fight. The enemy team is super low. They can't fight a soul. And instead of just taking the free soul, they're like, you know what? Fuck that. We are going to chase you to your nexus. Oh, guess what? We lost soul. Which is so weird because Carzzy was the one with discipline. Carzzy's like the one, like, I'm going to push mid. Like, you guys should back off and do soul. And it felt like Carzzy was having like a really good series. They didn't even give this guy a chance to carry.
I actually did think he played better than what I expected. I've got to give him props, yeah. It was actually even good timing because we just had the episode. We had Mac on the previous week, Nelson, and he was obviously bigging up Carzzy because it's his boy from when he was his player. But I've got to say, some of it did show up in the game. It actually did look like he played a lot better, made better Mac movements.
Yeah, I think their bot lane played a lot better compared to regular split. It's just that I think Selfmade was very more predictable for G2 during the playoffs, and then I think for the soul fight on the last game, I think there's no way Vitality lose. They have Baron and they have control of all the waves on the map, and they still didn't get, or they still let G2 have a chance to steal it with an RE kill.
Hilarious, wasn't it? I know. I would melt off the face of the earth if someone did that steal. That's like the steal where you just throw your monitor out the window immediately. You don't even think. You just have a game over. That was so mental, that steal, wasn't it? I know.
Yeah.
Firstly, it's like there's no way G2 should be allowed to get into that position.
Ah, why
and
you've
even
let the
try and
position
steal.
turn him off? Exactly, I know.
And secondly, it's if he can steal it with like REW, yeah, then you should just lose. You should just lose.
I
That
mean, I had a
reminds
free soul before that. Like, I don't know. It's so weird. This series, this game was so weird because it's like it felt like G2 didn't need to like work for. I mean, how is G2 in this game? It's like 5k gold lead. The kill score is 10-1. You've got complete control from Vitality. I mean, they literally are like winning side lane, and it's like G2 doesn't even have a great team fight comp. They have like an Aurelia and a Viego, and their like setup is an Ahri Jinx Lulu. Like, this is not an easy game to win at all for G2, but for some reason, it looks so fucking easy. It's like the worst part too is that generally, like with the Viego, Aurelia, Ahri comp, you have to run into the Renata, which is one of like the best strengths of Renata. Is if you run into her, she just ults and like your team implodes. This was super fucking weird. This like I was so surprised because you rarely see like games with perks in it where his team like throws like a game that they should win
for sure, yeah.
in a series like this, like a deciding game. It's so weird.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I just think Vitality had a better draft in this game as well. They had a better, especially they have Renata against Viego, and G2 doesn't have a comp which is very like has a they don't have a comp which has a fixed theme. So because Irelia and Ahri want to kill the backline and the rest want to
and
play
then
front to
Jinx
back,
want to like
and
kite back.
yeah, and Akali and Renata is like extremely good against these types of comps which don't have fixed teams.
I mean,
And
it's so
they
weird.
still lost. Especially
fight at
like
28
Renata
minutes,
against Renata against Viego. I think it's not playable for Viego at all, but they still managed to lose. So I
I mean,
just think they lost
literally,
the 3
Carzzy wins them
games.
the game. Carzzy was actually like, Carzzy was playing really well. I mean, not only did he smash lane, but in the fight before Soul, number one, Caps like completely like griefs it. Then Carzzy hits a 3-man ulti on Jankos, Targamas, and Flocket, almost kills them all instantly. And then Ahri flashes into the wall, and it's like, okay, it's unlosable game, guys. It's unlosable. Solo spawning in 30 seconds. Their mid laner is dead for 42, and the rest of the team needs to base because they're so low. I don't know. It was it was a real tragedy.
I thought they deserved to lose that series, though. You play like shit like that. Like I said, I'd only really give it to fucking Carzzy. Fair play, did and Perks. Yeah, whatever. Fuck him. Who cares on this one? It's his team. At the end of the day. He picked these players. So there you go. I'm using the LeBron defense. You picked these cunts. You can't turn around now and go, look at my bloody team. It's like, fucking you picked them. I didn't make you play with them. I would have told you to pick Mickey X instead of bloody Lavrov. But you didn't listen to me, did you? So enjoy. This is how it ends for you. There you go. Fuck off. Peace.
So who's the Russell Westbrook on this
It's got to be Lavrov, logically. Well, it's maybe, let me think though. It's maybe even self-made because it's someone who in theory is supposed to be really good, but they're actually sort of like low-key a bit shit at the game, aren't they? Here's the problem though. I've seen too much of self-made's career, right? If in the summer split we go to a meta where there's all the fucking carry champs he wants, he will have half the games he will stomp, but then everyone will be, he's back, he's one of the best again, and it'll all be, it'll get completely turned around. What do you think, Nelson?
I mean, I think if I wanted to make a super team with this core, I would just get Jankos. I think Jankos would make this team into a top 1 team, top 2 team.
That was actually my take. I think it was on Some of the Insight. I said, to me, the obvious move is like Vitality and G2 should just fucking, like, in theory, Vitality are the ones who want Jankos, don't they? And in fact, actually, G2 could use a player that could fucking carry a game. Like, the joke, because all I've seen in these whole playoffs, I actually predicted this coming in. The reason why I knew Jankos would do well, it's not because he's going to go, like, way above his level. His level just stays here. And then everyone else just goes off a cliff down here. And he's just stood there like, well, I guess I'm just the only one left, aren't I? Like, he just wins like a veteran, mate. He never gets rattled, never pushed out the game, never gives up, never does a stupid draft. Like, it seems in general like just the most reliable jungler in the whole region.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
if I was Vitality or G2, I would want Jankos. Like, I would take him over for both teams. I don't care about the swap.
Yeah, the problem is, you notice I slowed down when I was doing that. I was going to say like both teams should swap, but if I'm G2, I'm like, wait, why are we swapping though? Like,
I know, fair player like self-made.
True, exactly.
I think
it's like I realized I was being the one trying to screw him on that deal. Like, no, you could like use self-made though. Like, shit. Come on, Nelson.
I think self-made would work on a team like, SK, Misfits.
Like XL.
No, I won't take him unless you kill me. But
unless you kill me, what the fuck?
But it's like Yeah, he just needs to be the only carry of the game. So for example, let's say if the mid laner is not Vicio, maybe it's just some supportive mid laner, then yeah, you get self mid there and
Okay,
he
so
will
SK
1v9.
needs
Mad Lions. There we go. He
self-mid.
should be on Mad Lions.
Yeah, but you have Aluya, so
True. That's true.
Damn,
it's just a better version of self-made.
damn.
Let's flip it then
You're
and
a
go to the
self-made
other.
hater.
I mean, understandably though.
Nelson is just a
He gives you
self-made
plenty
hater.
of reasons to hit on him, though, doesn't he? Let's be real. I mean, not only that, by the way, because in his brain he still thinks he is some super skilled player, because he is a good player, just in performance he hasn't been for a while. Like, he does also have, like, here's the problem Selfmade has. Like, he's going to have so many haters because he has, like, the diva ego of the best jungler without being the best jungler. It's like, there's going to be people who are going to pray on your downfall. Like, dude, he was the one who even said that stupid fucking alley-oop that ended up being slammed back in his own face in this series, where right before he played this series, he said that interview where the quote was like, you know, like anyone who does well in scrims does really badly in the official game. It's like, oh, you just fucking set me up for that bit. Like,
I mean,
what are you doing before you play like that, you fucking idiot?
that's only true for like EU and NA teams because I think that the tryhard teams they always reach the world finals. At
Yeah, I
least
don't know.
from experience, like EDG, Suning, Damwon.
Yeah, I don't see anyone being like, oh, well, T1 is reportedly winning all their scrims. Like, bad sign for them. Like, they're fucked. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. Yeah.
like, I don't see anyone with that take about T1.
Thing is, though, actually, I can tie this back into the original conversation we started with, though. I actually think low key, that's also why it's really good, by the way, that Rogue is doing well in the playoffs. Because half of the argument from like the pros in Europe would be like, well, look at Rogue, they just fucking win all the scrims in all the regular season games, and then they're shit in the playoffs. Like, who cares about regular season? It's like, no, how you practice is how you play. Like, in my opinion, by the way, part of why Fnatic is so messy is because you hear all these stories about their fucking scrims. No wonder in the games it's just like random things are happening. Like, they have a hard time like pulling off a set play. There are no set plays. You just follow up in a sang or something. Like, what the fuck is it? Like, I don't even know what their playing style is, dude. I don't know if they do.
Yeah. I mean,
For the other series, I don't know how much we have to say. Maybe we'll just make it more on like why G2 is actually doing well now. Nelson, why did G2 have such an easy time with these series? Like even the Misfits one, they were fairly clean actually by the time it got. In fact, it was actually easier against Misfits than it was against Vitality.
I mean, I'm not sure if there's a lot to say about that series. I think every team in the playoffs knew that Misfits would lose the games whoever they face, and I think it just happened because I just think they didn't have good enough players or experienced enough players in the other roles compared to mid lane, and like at the jungler if he's off Lee Sin, I think he's just like he's half the jungler of who he is
Yes.
without Lee Sin. And the thing is, Lee Sin is not even like a super strong pick right now.
No. Sure. What about this though? Because obviously last year you were coaching Caps. What have you thought of this transformation in Caps' game? Because I mean, even when he's doing well, it's a different style of player. It seems like.
I mean, I think he is the best. Like,
Didn't you tell me something like that? This is actually something he's thought about a lot, right? Like the difference in how he's decision making and stuff, and what responsibility he has in his role. Didn't you tell me something like that?
Yeah, it's just more that to be more responsible with how he plays lane. At least last year, because before you could TP on minions, right? And the way he played mid lane in the previous years, put a lot of pressure on his different side lanes.
Oh,
But this year when there are the TP changes, it's just mainly about laning itself, and then I think Caps is the best like mage player in LEC by far. It's just that he's not so far ahead of his peers right now, because I think even the G2 Fnatic game where he played Orianna, I think it was fine. It's just that you can say that, you know, if it was Rookie would have carried that game. I don't think like the champion picks or his champion picks were ever the issue. It's just that
he
he's
plays
not.
them.
Yeah, it's just that he's not like 10 levels ahead, you know, of every player right now. Like if it was Rookie, the Rookie would have carried for sure.
Fair point.
What is it that makes him like a better mid laner on mage players? Because like when I watch him play, I don't see like any real difference. Like I would say that generally he's been like a middle of the pack mage player this split. Because it doesn't feel like he like develops big leads and lanes. It looks like in team fights he doesn't play them like specifically well. Like so, for example, like I would take Larssen over him for the majority of this split. Like if I was gonna be like, oh, like they're both on Orianna or they're both on Victor, like who's gonna actually output more damage or like have a better game overall, I would just take like Larssen. So what is so good about his mages?
I think his laning phase is good. He knows like how to space, how to trade, and I think the thing why he doesn't look that good this split is because their bot lane is not as experienced or as good as previous years. And regardless of how like dysfunctional like Mickey X and the Reckless lane was, they knew how to play like the early laning phase so that everyone can just run mid to help Caps to play as aggressive as he wants. But right now, I think Targamas and Flakka, they couldn't do it against the better bot lanes. And it is going to be like the other way around, where the enemy support is here and his own support isn't. But I think like if they put him on stuff like Orianna when it's fine in the draft, I think he's the person you want to pilot that champion. And it's just whether he can like step up to the next level. Maybe he needs to shave his head again or something for the playoff buff. But I still think he's like one of the best laners. It's just that he doesn't have the tools like before.
What do you think? Because I want to get your guys' thoughts. Like for me, I actually think for real, in the regular split, I think not only is Vithio my MVP, I think it's one of the best MVP splits I've seen in years. Like it's actually fucking insane how many games he was really good in, and especially when I consider, I actually think of all the people to win MVP, he might have the worst team of anyone who ever won fucking European MVP. But I have to say, I haven't seen that player in the playoffs. He had like the one fucking LeBlanc game in the first series. Like he even looks way more timid in these playoff matches to me. Like I understand it. He's still, to me, a rookie, but like I hoped I would see it like at least one like hard carry game or something. Like I don't think I feel like he got a bit shook in the playoffs.
I think Misfits' strength in the regular split was that they always had good drafts, but this did not carry on into like the playoffs, and I'm not sure why. But I think for sure, Vithio played extremely well in the regular split, and I think if I had to give an example, I think he's like the modern version of Froggen, where he only picks good champions. He never misses any CS, and he will carry if you don't int early game, or the rest of the team doesn't int early game. He will carry for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think he also has like by far the worst support in jungle, like in playoffs. Like I don't think there's a support in jungle, and like so that just means that he's never like getting any help mid. Like people are never coming mid to actually do anything.
They're also both rookies as well, so they're just like totally inexperienced players. So yeah, he doesn't have any help certainly.
Yep. And
if anything, I would even say this. I actually low-key also think the fact that you saw it went to the playoffs, that just shows how incredible that regular split was. Holy shit.
Yeah, I mean, their drafts, they were the first team to realize that, Jinx is broken. So they pick Jinx every game and were getting wins over and over and over again.
Yes.
And they always had better scaling. And Vithio, especially when he's on like last pick, he always knew what to pick. And you know that he won't lose lane if he's playing like mage or like range or Corki, He'll just farm, get every CS, and if you can't end the game, then he would just take over the game.
Yeah. I mean, I think he did have some like pretty good picks that other people weren't playing. So for example, like I mean he had, a really good Akali game. He was like able to find Zoe angles when Zoe was actually good, where other players were just kind of just on rotation picking like Victor and Rise and all the stuff every game. So I mean, I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, I mean, if a team gets to prep for Misfits, I mean, this is the reason why on the show I was talking about how I didn't expect Misfits to win any series at all. It's like if you're prepping for Misfits, like you know what you have to do. Like it's very obvious how Misfits wins games. And the only way that I could have seen Misfits actually winning a series is if like here it actually stepped up. But here it's such a massive liability that it's like you're just never in like any series where the games are even. It's like if the games are even close to even, it looks like Vetio could do something, but in these games it's just rough. Like I don't know, you don't have a winning bot lane, your support and jungle aren't doing anything, your top lane's perma-inting. Like I don't really feel like Neon and Vetio have that much of a chance to do much in these series. Sure, they didn't play well, but I think part of that is also like they're starting to realize throughout series that they have to do more than what is just like possible. They're going to have to just like force fights and force altercations and just hope that they end up like winning them, or the series is just going to go terribly for them, and they're just going to lose the game.
Yes, exactly. And I think here it played fine in the series against Rogue in the third and fourth game, but I think the first two games he was just inting beyond belief.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Here's one thing I'm interested for. Let's do, obviously, the only match we technically know is definitely set is obviously the lower bracket between G2 and Fnatic. Right, in this matchup, here's one thing I found very interesting is I also, by the way, I'm not just a student of the games I follow. I actually like to try and understand like the techniques people use on analysis desk, the different models people use to look at the game. And I've found what I think is an interesting angle here, which is this, right? People always do this thing in League where your last game overwrites all the rest of your fucking tendencies. So cause G2 looked really clean and easily handled Misfits, and not only handled Misfits, but then in theory their weakest player, Flackhead, had like the star performance. People feel like, wow, G2's actually like really good right now and they're going to be so dangerous. Meanwhile, you just remember the last 3 games of Fnatic Rogue and obviously they were losing, getting shit stopped. So I feel like everyone else has it like this is like a 50-50 or they think maybe G2 could do it. Like I personally, I'll just start out. I actually think Fnatic is going to win this series easily. I think all that, the problem is there isn't fucking Rogue on the other side of the server. I think people are going too far the other way personally. But I want to get your thoughts. Like Nelson, where are you at on this one? Does G2 have a shot against Fnatic?
I think Fnatic wins because I think if G2 plays against any team who has like a top laner who can play weak side and a good bot lane,
That's perfectly Fnatic right there,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
there's no angle for them to win, and I think Wander is clearly the best weak side player in the league, and
Aside from Odoamne, I assume.
I think the difference is like in terms of champion pool. Wander has a
Right.
bigger champion pool, but they are both very good on weak
Fair
side.
enough. Okay.
And yeah, upset and Hilly if they have counter pick or if they have counter pick, and I think regardless they are just miles ahead of Flacket and Targamas in lane. And if G2 cannot overcome this like laning deficiency, then it will leak over into mid and jungle, which will make it very hard for Broken Blade to like snowball and win the game.
What do you think, Dom?
Yeah, I don't really know how G2 can win. I mean, their bot lane definitely, as Nelson says, has to stand up to Fnatic's bot lane, but I mean, also, I don't really see how much changes from the first series. Maybe they're going to like leave up the Humanoid LeBlanc a game and they can try to do the same draft that they did against Vitality, but even those games, like, they end up with such a big deficit in the early game that it feels like if the LeBlanc just doesn't suicide, it becomes really, really hard. So I don't really see what their strategy is going to be. I mean, part of the reason why I felt like Fnatic stopped them so hard is because they left up LeBlanc. So maybe we see LeBlanc start getting banned then, and then we see like TF being left up because they failed with that. And we have to just see if the sidelines of G2 can actually withstand a TF the same way that Rogues did. So it's a hard series for me to see how G2 wins. I mean, it's one of those things where like like the Vitality series, I'm not sure if they have like a distinct advantage style wise if the players play the same way that they always do. But if some of the players overperform, I mean, who knows? Like I guess they could take a series. I mean, Rogue did look like they kind of were able to like fluster Fnatic. And I think the weird thing about Fnatic is like Hilly just doesn't look like himself at all in the playoffs. In like both series he played, I think he had relatively bad performance for himself.
Yes.
And I just want to see if that like continues because I mean, obviously when Hilly is playing like a really good game, when if he has like one of these really insane Rakan games or really insane Pike games, it's really hard for enemy teams to actually do anything to him. But recently we haven't been seeing that. We've just been seeing like a weird Thresh Hillsong version where he's just kind of like mediocre. It's not like he's even going for the super aggressive plays and failing. It's like he's just kind of there. Like you could have told me that was anyone else, and I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have blinked.
I think mainly it's just that teams have gotten better at drafting, and then if you're red side, if you're picking support on 5, then there's not many champions which Hillsong can pick because, like for example, even the Renata, right? So even if doesn't matter how good Hilly is on Renata, if enemy counter picks with like a Yumi, then you're gonna lose the game slowly. So I think like whoever picks red side against Fnatic and have a support which is as good or as good as Hilly, you're gonna win, or you can win. But I don't think G2 has the tools to win bot lane even with counter pick.
I think they're fucked though, dude, because the problem is I actually think Targamas, like low-key, does look pretty good. Actually looks like he could be a really good support. How can he do anything with that lane though? He's never going to be unlocked. He's never going to be in position to make fucking plays.
Well, I feel like Targamas is actually not that great in lane, but he's like decent on the map. But versus good bot lanes, it's like you actually have to be good in lane to then be able to move around the map. So I feel like it's really weird for him. And then like the thing that I that I'm surprised about is pretty much like if you think about the last like 2-3 years in EU, there was always this situation that would occur that would like Rakan would just be a specific counter pick on red side, and then as playoffs would go, the priority of Rakan would increase and increase to like inconceivable degrees. So we just started seeing like in previous years. I mean, you can go back like there was literally like B1 Rakans and shit in LEC playoffs, and that was always like part of what Hilly did well. Like he was just the Rakan guy, and you'd see teams like Mad Lions and Fnatic even having to ban Rakan like 1, 2, 3. So I'm wondering why you don't have more of these like picks from Hilly, like why he feels like he's gonna get counterpicked so hard now compared to before, because I feel like he would be fine playing his Rakan versus like Nautilus and things like that, because that's what he's made his money doing for so long. And normally part of like the reason that Upset and Hilly I felt like were so good over the course of the season was that they were able to pick lanes that were like a little bit weaker because the players were so good they could overcome those like minor disadvantages. It's part of the reason why they're able to play Pyke so much. So I want to see Hilly like actually lose on picks that he's good at, as opposed to like lose on the Thresh quietly or the Braum quietly.
I mean, I think Thresh is one of his picks though, and it's one of the picks which he can blind. It's just that I think right now, if you blind Rakan, enemy is going to play Zilean, and if you set up the bans for Rakan, then you will not get the Rakan because enemy will just pick it first. So it just turned out that the current meta you cannot blind pick Rakan because there are just counter picks to it, and basically every support has a counter, and teams or the good bot lanes are willing to pick the counters to beat you like in lane and in the team fights.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know if I would trust these other like supports on picks like Zilean. You know, it always felt like that was something that Hilly was really good at. Hilly was the guy that was like really good on the Zilean side of the matchup. But when I look at like other supports that try it, I mean, just think about like Lebrov Zilean, for example. It's like,
for sure, but I think
happening.
your competition is Trimby, and Trimby is also really good. So it's not a risk which you can take.
Yes, true. I'll even say it's actually interesting that the meta's like that. It reminds me, if people don't remember, way back when JDG actually won LPL a couple of years ago, that was also when like support fucking counterpick was like the OP shit in the meta, if people remember. That was why Lumao was the hero of the final, if people don't forget. Right, let's do the matchup, obviously, that no one knows if it will happen, but I'm assuming most people want the final to be a rematch of Fnatic Rogue, so we can do a run back and see the match again. Right, Nelson, if they play again, does Fnatic get their shit together? Does Fnatic win?
Do you know who has like side selection, Dom?
I'm not sure how that would work.
I mean, it should definitely be Rogue, right?
I think for game one, it should be Rogue because of the upper team, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, they were the upper team, but then they're also coming from the winners bracket, so I would assume that they would just definitely get side selection.
That's true. I mean, I think if Rogue does the prep well, and either they have something new on blue side or they pick red and play for counter pick again, I think it should be Rogue favored, because if I can pick any support champion on 5 just to counter Hylissang in lane, then I think it's quite easy for Rogue to win, because they for sure in lane they will not crumble against Fnatic, and they have the better jungler.
Well, what I think is interesting about this series is that the last time they played, both teams heavily prioritized blue side. Like I think blue side was selected every time because Rogue had side selection. They picked it game 1. Game 2, I think Rogue had side selection again because they lost, and they pick it again. And then games 3, 4, and 5, Fnatic just picked blue. So like, these teams seem to highly prioritize blue over red.
Game 3, Rogue picked red side.
Oh yeah, Rogue picked red one time.
Yeah, the loser chooses.
Yeah. So out of the 5 games that were played, the team that had side selection chose blue 4 times.
Okay. Yeah.
That's like kind of crazy to me, because it seems like red side has been so valuable. So I don't know if these teams like now prioritize red side more.
I think it depends, but I think against Fnatic you want red side, but against other teams you want blue, because I think blue is too strong in terms of like Hecarim and Jinx. Hecarim, Jinx, Zeri in some cases, but I think you wouldn't want to like blind pick Zeri against a strong bot lane. Yeah, but it's like TF Hecarim, Jinx, right? And I think Rogue realized that Fnatic doesn't play Hecarim, so there's actually not that big of a advantage for them.
But they did play Hecarim, so what do they
no,
just
Fnatic,
like? Do they just
as in Fnatic?
Yeah, no, but that's what I mean. Like Fnatic like used to play Hecarim, so when did they drop Hecarim? They just don't care about it anymore.
I'm not sure if they did play Hecarim.
Yeah,
Because
Razork
they
did.
they didn't show it in playoffs. Yeah,
Um,
I thought it's like 50% win rate. Yeah, they played it
yeah,
in
but
two
like one
games.
of the
Yeah.
games, yeah, I mean, one of the games was that like that huge throw against Misfits where they had like the pause and the Kali. So, I mean, to me, I would just assume that they would be able to play Hecarim. I don't know why Razork would just not be able to play it. It's
Yeah,
also like so
I'm not
fucking
sure.
easy
I'm
to
not
play.
sure as well. I'm not sure as well. But I think in playoffs he didn't show it as well. And I think like for sure every team they know like what your opponent is practicing in scrims, and I guess there was no Hecarim from Fnatic, and I mean, that's my best guess.
Okay.
By the way, you said earlier that you also thought. Did you actually say that you actually agreed that the Rogue bot lane was better than Fnatic's? Did you say that?
Yeah, I think they are the best bot lane overall.
Because I also think there's another part. Because people are so focused on these storylines, will Rogue choke? What's Malrang doing? And wow, Larssen versus Humanoid. Those are like the main storylines at the moment. Another thing I thought about that series is like obviously comps just played Aphelios all the time. Like if you notice, like if they'd actually just got, if they could have just gotten some better fights in game one and game two, he looked like he played pretty good the whole series through. Like a couple of times, maybe got blown up early in the first couple of fights, but then again, they also couldn't team fight in game one because, as we said, you just get shock blasted to like half health the second you step forwards. But like, I thought overall, bearing in mind in all these games, they're already on the Aphelios side of the draft. Like, looks like it's suiting this player pretty well. He's doing really consistent damage in the fights. You just
Yeah,
have to front line for him, basically, right?
yeah, I mean, I think Aphelios is a champion which yeah he can play with his team or he can play alone, where he's not afraid of champions diving him. But I think he has been playing well, especially after game two. I think game two against Fnatic he didn't play well at all, but after that he stepped it up. I think the biggest factor is just Trimby. I think he's been performing the best, and unlike Illisang, he doesn't have like a locked champion pool.
That's true.
He can play champions which are
Plays everything. Even
yeah
plays the
which
OP meta shit
yeah
locked, like you were saying. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
he can play Lux, he can play Karma, he can play
Yeah.
Nami, and it's something which every team is actually afraid of, because even for Fnatic, if they're blue side and they have Zeri, then you might just play against Lucian Nami and get destroyed in lane. And this is something which every bot lane has to consider.
Sure. I'll also say as well, because people might have seen he went on one of the LS core streams. I've seen he did the Euphoria podcast. He also seems, by the way, like a very cerebral player. Like he is a guy who's very open to different champion picks and how they play around the world. It looks like he's a student of the game. So massive positive signs if you're a fan of Rogue and LEC in general. Like we could use another really brilliant cerebral support player. Like these are the players I think people don't realize make your region way better than they should be. Like the difference between having just a normal 8 out of 10 support player and having Hillisang can be enormous if you're in the right series against like some LPL team. Similarly, in my opinion, Trimby could be one of these players if he keeps it up. He's looking really great so far.
No, I think he's already like he's clearly like top 3 supports in EU with
Yes.
Hilly and Nikki.
The joke is, I would say he could be a great support player with a great mind for the game, like Mako. But obviously, none of the LEC pros know who that player is because he's only played on bloody EG your whole career. You fucking idiots, mate. That pop quiz was driving me mental. Like, oh, where was the support player for EDG again? Like, have you ever watched the LPL? He's been there the whole time since like 2015. That's what you cocksuckers like.
I mean,
I'm alded like Dom does when he watches someone stream. I couldn't handle that one, mate.
yeah, I mean, I think that you can make an argument for Mako being like the best support of all time.
For real?
I think that he's like potentially the GOAT support.
I agree.
Longevity,
I would say
MSI champion. Like,
I think if you ask like the Chinese players, I think they'll probably say Ming because of the shot calling element, which is something which Mako lacks, and that's why they got Flandre to shot call instead.
Right. He's in the category at least. I agree. Definitely in the fucking mix of the names you have to put up
at
there.
accolades like 4 LPL. Does he have 4 LPL titles? Something like that. It's like 3 or 4 LPL titles, MSI champion, world champion, like longevity, been good for a fucking long ass period of time. Like,
yes,
that guy is up there.
What a beast.
Yeah, what a beast.
Great.
I get so upset when I hear, you know what, it was crazy? I see players like not know that type of stuff. Like they won't know who played on EDG last year, but then they'll like remember, like there was that one thing about like the best jungle plays, and Elyoya was doing that, and he said Top Esports won last year. Like that was his guess, was Top Esports for world champion last year.
That's right. Yeah, that was the worst one of all, obviously, yes.
But he remembered like plays from like 2015, 2016, 2017. It was like, what the fuck, man? Like,
I know. If people don't know, it's like I always tell them, pros don't watch the game like analysts do. They just watch it like a fan on the fucking second monitor, and they go, "Oh, did T1 win again?" And they just cobble together some shit. I guess Faker's good. Like, they don't know that shit. They're not watching half the games, boys, and they're definitely not watching the LPL. I don't care what they tell you now. They are not watching the LPL. They can all fuck off. They're all liars. There might be 5 people in the whole LEC watch the fucking LPL. So stop pretending it's you if you're an active player, but at the same time doing those tweets like, recommend 3 anime series for me. You aren't watching the LPL, mate. You're trying to get random Japanese school kids cartoons to watch, you all cunt. Shut the fuck up. Turn all those off. I've got a good anime for you. How about the last 5 seasons of LPL, you little shitters? It's only your job. These are the teams that are going to win worlds, you know. So anyway, I got triggered on that one. Right. How about this then? I've got a last angle for you, because here's the key thing for me, is if it feels like most of us are taking Rogue to win the final, right? Is that correct?
I'm taking Fnatic still.
Oh, you're still taking Fnatic? Well, I'll go to you first then. The obvious question to ask, in my opinion, is anytime people think it's one way, you just ask what would be the game changer. So what will make Fnatic win this time then, Dom? What turns it around?
Different drafts, and then Hilly just having a better series and support counterpick. Either even if you're not getting support counterpick, even if Rogue just chooses red side every game and Rogue is just drafting for support counterpick, banning supports that you actually think are going to be impactful in the series. Like, if you can't deal with Rakan, adapt, ban the Rakan, get yourselves in even matchups, and Hilly just showing up, because Hilly doesn't even need to be better than Trimby necessarily to win the series. He just needs to be like Hillsong. Like, he needs to just get some good engages off, like play like himself, and then I think that Fnatic can win. I still believe in them.
Okay.
I think the support and jungle gap is. I mean, okay, support depends on corner pick, but Rogue has side selection, so they'll have side selection for 3 out of 5 games.
Yeah,
and
I just don't know what that means. Like, because 4 out of 5 games were picked blue side by these teams like last week. So unless now they've massively changed their mindset on it, like, I don't even know if these teams are going to prioritize red side or not.
I mean, if it stays similar, I mean, of course the drafts or the picks could change, but if they have the similar idea of counter picking support, I think that is very important for Rogue, and they will have the advantage because they are from upper bracket. And I just think the difference in jungle is too huge in terms of where to be on the map, how to play, how to punish lanes. I think Razork only punishes bot lane, but Malrang knows how to punish every lane, and then it just makes it very predictable. And I think anytime which Razork starts his jungle clear from the bot side of the map, the game is lost. I think, and that's how every scrim goes.
Okay. That's the checklist, right? He started bottom, it's over. That'd be the ultimate Cadril, VOD review. 1 second in, it's over. Game's over. But he hasn't even taken his first buff yet. It's over. The game's over. I love that. That's because if people don't know, Nelson is like that. Like, the stuff he thinks he is right on, he is just right. You don't have to argue. It's nothing to elaborate upon. And the stuff that he's wrong about, well, it doesn't happen. So shut up.
Yeah.
Never
well, no, if he's wrong about something, it's because the players just misplayed.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Like, oh, the game was completely over as soon as Viego just auto-attacked the red buff 1 time on blue side. But, I mean,
he couldn't play it out more. He didn't play it out correctly.
That's how it goes.
Right. So, obviously, nice to hear Nelson's thoughts, as usual. We may have a guest for the next one, but I'll keep that as a secret so people can find out. And also that way, if scheduling doesn't work out, I win either way, don't I? Now, obviously, we're about to have the old kings play against each other, G2 and Fnatic, and then whoever wins that, we can have a proper narrative that's actually up to date and from 2022, and the LEC on-camera broadcast talent and can actually do their jobs.